Welcome to The Favorite Teacher, a show where I interview people who are doing a great job with content strategy and positioning themselves as the favorite teacher in their industry. And today I have Dave with me. I'm super excited. He does a great job of this, and he's going to talk about what he does, his industry, and how he teaches his audience. So, Dave, if you want to get started with a quick introduction, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, thanks so much, James. Many businesses struggle with inefficiency, consistency, and waste. We help them optimize their operations and enhance profitability, cash flow, and company culture. My name is Dave Crysler, and I own an operations focused consultancy called the Crysler Club.
Awesome. Thank you. So, as part of your business, or part of being a favorite teacher, I should say, you have to have students, right? Your audience. So, who is the audience for you and your business when you're creating content?
Yeah, typically we are working with small to medium sized manufacturers, but the common thread there is that they're focused on driving sustainable growth and looking towards operating with excellence and building out a culture of continuous improvement.
Awesome. And this is something that, like, I would say I'm kind of a nerd about too. Like, I love process improvement and looking at that kind of stuff and systems thinking. So, I always get a big kick out of your content, even though I might not be in your ideal clientele or ideal audience. I think the stuff is super fascinating, which is, I think, how we got connected. Is you did some stuff with Emma and some
Yeah.
other mutual connections. But then beyond that, I just subscribed to your LinkedIn newsletter because I thought the content was super good, and I've been enjoying it every week since then. So when you are looking at how you kind of position yourself as that favorite teacher to your audience, what are the different ways that you teach? Like, what's the kind of content that you create? How do you teach it? How do you deliver it? I guess, kind of how do you go through the process of putting out educational content for your audience?
Yeah, I mean it all starts for me with the hard lessons learned. And when I think about all of the different activities and challenges and achievements along the way, a lot of that was because of the hard lessons learned. So when I'm thinking through, what do I want to talk about? What was kind of the challenge? What was the outcome? What was the lesson learned? I'm looking to try to do that, like in a fun and meaningful way because, not everybody is excited about operational excellence or efficiency as you and I are, James. So I'm always trying to think through that lens and try to make it relevant for people so that they can understand what is that lesson, what's the takeaway, how can I apply it so I don't have to go through this same type of hard lesson to learn the same get the same results.
Yeah, that's perfect framing too, because I think that it ties really well into teaching versus selling through your content. Because I think so many people will jump in and start talking about their products, talking about their services. And if you don't have that problem, solution, impact, case study style of teaching, people can't really grasp how it relates to their problem in their business, right? They see you talking about, like, I can improve your profitability, which, like, everybody wants to improve profitability, right? But if they don't see what it looks like to address a problem in the systems that impact the people, that impact the profitability of your business, they're not ever able to make that connection. So I think the case studies and those kind of lessons you're talking about are a great example of that. Digging a little bit deeper, what are the actual, like, mediums? Like, I subscribe to your newsletter. Is that your big channel you use, or what other ways are you teaching and delivering that content?
Yeah, I mean the newsletter is definitely one of the larger channels that that I publish to. It's been great. I have a lot of fun with it. As an extension of the newsletter, I actually have a podcast. So the podcast actually launched a few years ago, but I kind of use it today as both having solo episodes that are an extension of the newsletter, as well as have kind of business owners, subject matter experts on it as well, just talking through kind of the everyday challenges that we're all faced with, from a business perspective. So yeah. Podcast, newsletter. I'm making short form and long form videos, doing written posts as well, so active, kind of across Twitter and LinkedIn and, kind of all of the major platforms. But it's really every type of content that you can create, because at the end of the day, one of the things that I've learned about creating content is that different people consume different mediums. So where you might not be able to connect with somebody who doesn't enjoy reading a newsletter, you might connect with them by telling a story about that same topic in your newsletter, but through the podcast. Or you might catch them with a really funny tweet about that same issue over on Twitter. So if you can take that principal idea and expand on that multiple ways across multiple mediums, I think that's the most effective way. Not just to get your message out, but to not also feel like you're burning out as a creator and you can't come up with the next new idea or the next new thing to write about or talk about. Using that kind of hub and spoke methodology really helps you from a creator standpoint. Get your message out and connect with the people the way they want to be connected with.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, and that's something that I talk about often with people who feel overwhelmed with creating content is that you can repurpose content and it can
Yeah.
be kind of different like zoom in levels, right? Like I might start with a social post that takes me 10 minutes to write, that then turns into a blog post, I then send out a newsletter. And if it's like really one of those like core articles that's like fundamental to the kind of stuff that I'm doing from like a service delivery or from a content perspective, then I might turn it into a webinar. I might bring in guests on that webinar. So it's kind of like one kernel of idea can go that way. Or like, you're kind of talking about too, you do the opposite, right? Like you record one podcast episode that then turns into a newsletter, or then you can pull out little snippets, then turn into social content. So it's not like every single piece of content you're putting out there is brand new. So I think that's a great,
Yeah.
I guess, approach to how you're doing it. And this is kind of a off the cuff question that I hadn't asked you to prepare for either. But generally speaking, you're talking about a lot of different content, and people get overwhelmed with that much content creation. How much in a given week? How many hours do you think you spend on content creation, or just in this side of your business?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that it's an investment. And I say it that way because it really is. You have to, like many things in business, I'm a continuous improvement person, right? So if I don't believe in that as, a methodology, and I'm not constantly striving for that, I'll always look at it as an expense and something that ultimately is I'm returning, kind of evaluating that return on investment. And content is no different, right? So in terms of hours, I mean, I'd rather not talk about it, but in terms of percentage, it's a significant investment. um I think the trick really is to have fun with it and to not let it consume you. I think that's where you start to feel that burden of having to create. I've taken pauses with not much impact. I've repurposed things with, you know, good and bad impact. So, having an idea of what do you really want to do, and doing it for the right reasons, kind of alleviates maybe the investment piece of it, both from a time perspective and, monetary, right? If you're having other folks support those efforts, that's obviously an expense, or an investment that you're going to have to make. So
Yeah, that's a great point. And and we're kind of in the same boat here, right? That we spend a lot of time creating content, and yeah, and I like your thought process of like you should enjoy it. It should be fun. And again, going back to that concept of kind of being that favorite teacher, it's I guess is you should be enjoying the content that you're
yeah,
creating and teaching about. And if you are having fun talking about the problems and solutions and getting people to unlock that next level of thinking that allows them to understand what you do on a better level and help grow their business, it makes it more fun to do for sure. And I think I look at our time spent, we probably spend 20 to 30% of our business time. I'm just really throwing the number out there, but that's probably my rough guess. But it comes back in terms, like you're saying, it is an ROI on it, which is the next question I have for you. Like,
yeah,
how has creating educational content impacted your business? Because I think this is a big thing for people to grasp is that yes, you spend hours creating content, but this is hours that are not spent cold DMing people and trying to go to networking events that are like not the right fit for you because you just want to find that one contact who might be a prospect for you. So when it comes to your success coming out of your content strategy and what you've been doing, how would you say it's impacted your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's been very impactful. And to your point too, in terms of where are we spending our efforts, whether you want to go down the networking path, whether you want to go down the outreach path, whether you want to go down the content path, you have to understand, in my opinion, kind of where your sweet spot is. Um, just creating content, the act of that alone is not going to drive any inquiries, any business. And this is something I kind of struggled with. I think people that know me and know me well know that I'm a pretty fun person. I have a pretty good personality. I'm easygoing. I'm easy to talk to. I love to try to help people. And it took me a long time to get that voice to come through video and what I write. So it takes a while for these things to kind of mesh and mold. And while you might be a person that, your kind of close circle knows, it takes a while for that to bubble out and for you to be comfortable to share that, for you to joke and to be your normal self. And so I say, if you're going down the content path, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that was my journey. It took me a really long time to get to this place where I love to make content. I love to have conversations like this. And years ago, I would have never in a million years thought that that's where this would be. And just getting back to the underlying question, right? Instead of having to go out and to chase and to push and to get people into my sales pipeline and cycle, right? I'm out there, I'm making friends, I'm having conversations, people are outreaching to me and saying, hey, I've been thinking about this, what's your thought process on this, can we have a conversation? So it very much has impacted the stuff that I'm doing, which is why I'm bullish on continuing to do it and why I encourage other people to do it. But it is certainly not a set it and forget it. It is certainly not an easy button. It takes a lot of effort. It takes you to bring your A game and kind of personality to the table to be successful.
Yeah, I think truly like any kind of business development or sales function, like you're saying, it is, there's nothing passive about creating content. Yes, it's
Right.
inbound. It's inbound, right? And like people are coming to you with their problems and you can help solve them. But it's definitely something that you need to be proactive about. And I think there's definitely certain types of personalities that tend to do well in doing educational content because it's kind of naturally part of who they are, of wanting to help people solve their problems and kind of having that heart of a teacher approach to things. But you already gave some tips, as far as that kind of coming out of your shell and the personality side of things. But let's say someone's watching this and they're just getting started with the idea of creating educational content for their audience. What would be a big tip or tips you'd give them in that beginning stages of their journey?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest tip I could give anybody is to keep going, because one of the things about content creation, and I can't remember exactly where I heard this from, probably Gary Vee or somebody like that, right? But in those beginning times, you get kind of frustrated or ready to give up early because nobody's consuming your content, nobody's engaging, nobody's paying any attention to you. And what turns out to be a really good thing for you, because it takes you a long time to kind of figure out, your cadence and how you want to present yourself and what mediums, all of those things, right? So it's that keep going perspective. This stuff takes a really long time to get traction. It takes a lot of, repetition to understand what is the cadence in terms of what's resonating with people. And again, keep in mind that's going to be different for each platform, each type of medium. So don't do what I do and try all things all at the same time. Don't be crazy. Pick one thing, get really good at it, and then start to utilize that to expand. So I'll pause there for you, James.
Yeah, no, that's great tips. I mean, and it truly is. It's a marathon, not a sprint, right? But I love what
Right.
you're saying too. Like, you don't want people at the beginning to see all your
Oh
content and what's
yeah.
going on because it's going to be dirty and bad and whatever else. But that's part of the learning process. And
Yes.
I always work with our community on this too. Is like, your first few videos will be bad, right? And when I say bad, like they'll be terrible. It won't like misrepresent you and that kind of thing. But they can't compare themselves to where you are now or somebody else is right now when you're years into this journey going
Yeah.
through and iterating and getting better at editing and getting better at flow and cadence, like you're saying, and refining the platform stuff. But it is an investment that takes time. And from my personal experience, I'd be curious yours too, but like it typically takes like about 3 to 6 months minimum before you start seeing like results. And then like 6, 12, 18 months out is like, oh, this is really working. This is now I'm actually generating some leads from this process. But it's definitely not like a flip of a switch. Within a couple of weeks, you'll be super successful. It's all part of that process of leveling up.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, your time may vary, as the disclaimer, right? Because I think a lot of it is tied to how comfortable and how quickly you could kind of break out of your shell. What kind of personality do you have? And the other part is the subject matter, right? So some of us will have subject matter that attracts a smaller, more niche group. Don't broaden, right? Like, don't broaden yourself out because your people will find you, and it's really hard to kind of believe and buy into when you're early on in that. But they do. It's just, I know many, many people have experienced that. So it's not just me saying it. Lots and lots of people, have experienced that kind of phenomenon. So stick with it. But certainly don't think that you just signed up for the easy button, because it's
Yeah,
definitely not that.
that's an excellent little bonus tip there, because that's another thing too, is you see people who are getting tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of impressions on their content, and that doesn't necessarily convert into revenue for them or profitable sales if it's
Yeah.
just random people who are liking their cat videos, right? Like you can find a tribe of people who are super engaged and build a community around that, like that will generate referrals and that will generate leads from you. So that's a great little bonus tip you gave there. But yeah, thanks for joining today. I really appreciate it. For people who are looking to check out your content or maybe even improve their systems in their business, where should they find you?
Yeah, I'm super active on LinkedIn, so you can always find me there. Just at Dave Crysler. You can also find me on Twitter, or you can check out our website.
Awesome. Thanks for joining me today, Dave. Appreciate it.
Thanks, James.